It is that time of year. Now, I understand people are having trouble getting all excited about hockey, but guess what? Guess what I got today? Okay, Sports Forecaster, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys what's in these. I've been buying these for decades. Sports Forecaster, you get stats on all your players. They tell you who's due to have a big season, who's due to bounce back. They give you all kinds of numbers and stats on everybody and every team, and it's fun. And you get top 25 prospects on every team, and I love going over those lists, poring over them a lot. Pooler's Guide. Pooler's Guide is more strictly numbers for your pool. So it's shorter on your previews. So it does previews, but for the most part, most of it is this. So it'll give you the stats on the player, the amount of time they spent injured, and they'll give you, Evan Rodriguez. Rodriguez is a diminutive winger with a deft touch. Offensively, he's a playmaker first and foremost. They give you, before the All-Star break, he had 7 points in 21 games. After the All-Star break, he had 18 points in 27 games. So he scored at a rate of .33 points per game before the All-Star break, .67 after. So this is more geared towards hockey pool. The one thing with the Pooler's Guide, it is out of Quebec, and I have seen times where them translating from French to English, some of it may not make a whole lot of sense or may sound like it's poorly worded. Not as much recently. Recent years it hasn't been as bad, but in past that happened. And I bought myself this. Now this should be in the mail coming to me as well, but if I get another one, then I have 2 copies. I had 2 copies last year too. You'll notice that since they're all in the Vancouver region, they've all got Brock Besser on the cover because everybody's excited about Besser. And this Hockey News yearbook, since I've got the pool guide, right, and I showed you guys yesterday, which is strictly hockey pool, this is your yearbook. This has all of your look ahead. It's got all the stats for last year. It's got top 10 prospects, and it gets into it. It gets into where they think teams are going to finish, Stanley Cup odds, and all the numbers. And then at the back, and I haven't really looked at this for this year, at the back you got all your numbers. You got every draft pick as well. Sports Forecaster gives you every draft pick as well. But what this does as well is it gives you stats for every league in the world. Every major sports league that they can find stats for it, they give you. Atlantic Universities, the KHL is in here as well. There's a lot of good stuff in these magazines. What I want to focus on is not only that I buy magazines, which are paper. So before the digital age, we'd actually read words on paper. And we would buy this paper in exchange for being allowed to leave the store. And all kidding aside, I still love having yearbooks, and I love that I have over 20 years of yearbooks. So when I'm doing the history videos, right now I'm using an actual NHL history book for that. But at some point soon, I'm not going to need that to do my history reviews because I've got all these other yearbooks, all this other data, all this other stuff, and the stuff I remember. Let's get into it. Now, I color-coded this and put a headline at the top. So you've got the Hockey News, the Pooler's Guide, the Forecaster, my predictions, and the channel's predictions. There shouldn't be confusion in this. I just want to get into this. And I only put X's next to teams that are in the playoffs according to channel predictions that have to make it, so top 3 in each division. When we set this up, we didn't set it up so that people were voting for who the wild cards were going to be, but that's okay. Let's get into this. The Hockey News, not a whole lot of controversy in who they're picking in the Atlantic. The Atlantic, everybody seems to agree on who the top 4 teams are. Everybody. And not only that, but Tampa, Toronto, Boston, Florida. Tampa, Toronto, Boston, or Toronto, Tampa, Boston, Florida. Tampa, Toronto, Boston, Florida. So Pooler's Guide has Toronto in first. I have Toronto in first. I'm the only one that has Florida ahead of Boston. The channel had Tampa, Toronto, Boston, Florida. Buffalo, Detroit, Montreal, Ottawa. So, matches completely with Pooler's Guide, except Toronto and Tampa switching. Matches completely with the Hockey News as well, and completely with Sports Forecaster. So, this is why this is fun. You guys make your predictions, I make mine, they make theirs. Theirs come out after. Now, these magazines are printed before the Jeff Skinner trade, because Buffalo fans are going to be like, is this before the Jeff Skinner trade? Yes, all of these are done before the Jeff Skinner trade, because you have to put your magazine to print. This is why I do my predictions when I do them, and I don't change them. But it's interesting, because, again, the hierarchy in the division seems to be agreed upon. Now, yes, I did have Detroit ahead of Montreal and Buffalo, which caused a lot of consternation among a lot of people. I'll stick to that, and if I'm completely wrong, well, I like Buffalo, as evidenced by the brand new jersey that just joined my collection today. Now the Metro is up in the air. Hockey news goes way out. Columbus, they say, is going to be first, followed by Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly, Carolina, Jersey, Rangers, and Islanders. This is where, for New Jersey fans, I want you guys to realize something. I am the only one taking New Jersey to make the playoffs. And yet, I get accused of being a Devils hater, and it's weird. The Pooler's Guide has Pittsburgh, Philly, Washington, Columbus, New Jersey just below the line, Carolina, Rangers, and Islanders. Forecaster, Pittsburgh, Washington, Columbus, Philly, there's New Jersey below the playoff line, Carolina, Islanders, Rangers. Personally, I had Pittsburgh in first, so I agree with Pooler's Guide on that. They have Washington in third. I have Washington in second, Philly, New Jersey, Columbus, Rangers, Carolina, and Islanders. So I'm the only one that had Carolina in seventh, and that's before that trade as well. The channel voted Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly, Columbus, New Jersey, Carolina, Rangers, Islanders. So if you're looking at it, you guys don't match any of them. The closest you get is this one. Pooler's Guide. Pooler's Guide's the closest one to the channel's predictions. Because Columbus being first is way off. Washington being third is closer. Pittsburgh, Washington, Columbus, Philly, those are all switched. Jersey, Carolina, Islanders, Rangers. They also don't have the Islanders in the bottom. So the Sports Forecaster magazine is more optimistic about the Islanders than most. So let's look out west. And we'll start with the Pacific. The hockey news is out of their minds. I'm just going to go right out and say it. Calgary first. They have Calgary first. San Jose, Vegas, Anaheim. They have LA missing the playoffs. Edmonton, Arizona, Vancouver. The Pooler's Guide has Anaheim first, then San Jose, Vegas, Calgary in fourth, Edmonton, LA, Arizona, and Vancouver. The forecaster, Sports Forecaster, has LA first, followed by San Jose, Vegas, Anaheim, Edmonton, Arizona, Calgary. So the Hockey News has Calgary in first. Sports Forecaster has them in seventh. Okie dokie. I have them in fourth, but I have them missing the playoffs. I have San Jose, Vegas, LA, and then below the playoff line, Calgary, Edmonton, Anaheim, Arizona, and Vancouver. I believe I'm the only one that has Anaheim missing the playoffs. Let me just double check that. Yeah, I'm the only one that has Anaheim missing the playoffs. Pooler's Guide has them finishing first. The channel went San Jose, Vegas, LA, Anaheim. I'm guessing you guys think Anaheim's making the playoffs, which would be fine. I'm the only one saying no. Calgary, Edmonton, Arizona, and Vancouver. So if you're looking for somebody who's close to the channel on this one, nobody had Vegas in second. Calgary in first makes that way off. LA, San Jose, Vegas, Anaheim, Edmonton, Arizona, Calgary, Vancouver. This might be closest. If we don't include me, I might be closest to you guys. Yeah, the Pacific is really all over the place. And it's funny because if you look at it, Calgary in first, Anaheim in first, LA in first, I have San Jose in first, and the channel had San Jose in first. So, again, I get talked to a lot about, you really hate San Jose. Yeah, but I have them in first. These guys have them in second. The channel had them in first. So, there you go. Everybody thinks they're number two. I think they're number one. There you go. Vegas, the interesting thing too is nobody's picking Vegas to miss the playoffs minus one of the THN writers that I mentioned yesterday. Now, the Central, for being such a competitive division, there seems to be some agreement on who's going to finish where. Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis, Dallas, that's the cutoff line for the Hockey News, and then they have Colorado, Minnesota, and Chicago. If you're a Wild fan, you're not going to be happy. The Pooler's Guide has Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis cut off, so they have 5 teams in the Pacific making it, and then Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, and Chicago. So Colorado misses. The forecaster, however, is a little bit more optimistic about Colorado. They have Nashville, Winnipeg, Colorado third, Chicago fourth, which is gutsy if that works out. I have to read through all these magazines and read through the explanation of why. And that's important too when you look at these. By all means, if you get a magazine, it's always interesting to see why one of these magazines is saying this team's going to get better or this team's going to drop off the map. For Forecaster, they have St. Louis out of the playoffs, which is also gutsy because none of the rest of us do, including the channel. Dallas and Minnesota. And my predictions were Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis, Dallas, Colorado, playoff line, and then Minnesota, Chicago. Now, the channel had it Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis, and then I don't know if the channel said Colorado was going to make it or not, but they'd Colorado had to Dallas, Minnesota, and Chicago. Colorado, Dallas, St. Louis, Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis, Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota, Chicago. So for those of you that voted on the channel, you were closest to the Hockey News and Pooler's Guide, right about equal. The Pooler's Guide, by putting Chicago in fourth, throws the whole thing off. We're all going to be wrong. And the wonderful thing about this, and going through all these magazines and getting all psyched up for this year, and trust me, I'm starting to get a little bit hyped up about this season. And what's weird is it's August 21st. It's gross out. There's smoke everywhere. It's hot and it's nasty. And here I am still buying jerseys and still getting hyped for this coming season because it's going to arrive quickly. We're roughly 6 weeks away from playing hockey that means something. And we're roughly a month away from playing hockey that doesn't really mean anything, but we're going to watch it anyways because it's hockey. So there you go. I hope that I've given enough time in this video for you guys to look over these standings, explain this clearly enough that you guys can go over it. Tell me which one of these magazines is out of their minds, which one is closest to how you think reality is going to turn out. And the most interesting thing to me is, usually these guides don't agree with each other at all. They're pretty close this year. They are pretty darn close. The Hockey News with Calgary and Columbus in first, that's gutsy. The Pooler's Guide has Toronto in first here, and they have Anaheim and Calgary making it, so that's gutsy. And in the forecaster's mind, Chicago makes the playoffs. I think that shows a lot of courage, because again, when you are predicting that a team's going to make the playoffs that missed by a lot, that does take some courage, because a year later you could look like a complete fool, or you can look really smart. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And as I told you guys with the pool guide yesterday, I always enjoy getting all these magazines because then I can absorb as much information as I can. And this is how, when I do videos and I talk about things from past seasons and I talk about players, this is part of how I absorb as much information as I can, as quickly as I can, is by going through all these magazines. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. And I'll talk to you again soon.